So after 6 long months of inactivity, no jobs, no vacancies, no internships, insight weeks, nothing, spring comes around and it brought us a plethora of opportunities. So many vacancies, all these jobs, all these internships, insight weeks, 12-week programs, 3-week programs, the whole shebang. Yeah, they're all waiting for my sweet cover letter. So, as I mentioned at the end of my April update, I honestly thought that'd be the last video I make. But, I don't know, something kind of hit me. And also my exams are in a month, so I'm just going to sit down and make a bunch of internship game videos. This one's going to be a follow-up from that. But what I've got coming next will be virtual assessment centres that I've had people ask me for. And use of LinkedIn. So we'll see those videos coming out, obviously next week and then the week after. And then that probably will be the end of the internship game. Because even though, as I said, there's a plethora of opportunities out there, I've got exams in a month. I'm not trying to be sitting down doing... I mean, the application itself isn't that bad, but it's the whole tests, preparing for interviews, preparing for assessment centres, all this added stress I can't be bothered to take on right now. What I do think happened, briefly to give my 2 cents on the issue, I guess, I think all these companies kind of scaled back operations. They kind of put everything back, internalized everything for a while they let the global circumstance occur outside. And then I think this year, when it came to like 2021, January, February, March, they're like, you know what? We didn't take on many interns, we didn't really offer any insight weeks, we didn't really do any programs, but the circumstances have kind of improved. People are still looking for these jobs. At some point, they do need to hire more people eventually. So they said, you know what, why not just do it now in spring instead of doing it early in the year? So instead of having like September, October, November internship game, now we've got exam season and no internship game, basically. I'm not too beat up by that. My CV is already pretty decent. I've done EY in the past, Ernst & Young. I've done Bamboo in the past, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. So I've had 2 good springs in the past. I've also done a bunch of things this year. I did a program of Common Purpose, the Global Leadership Experience. I did a program recently with Generating Genius and Good for Good. The Commercial Engineering Insight Week. If you want to keep up to date with what I'm doing, find that on LinkedIn. Always plug in the link in the description below the like button. But yeah, like I'm not too beat up by it, but I know some people are obviously looking forward to applying to more things. So yeah, we're going to talk about that a bit more in the following videos. This is more to update you guys because people are like, how did PwC go? How did the Outstanding Award go? I've also applied for this Fast Futures thing by Avocado, something. And I've also applied for CEO of a Month. Those are the last 2 applications I'm going to get off. No more from this point on. As I said, I got exams. I'm not trying to be overly stressed. But to give you guys some updates, let's get it. So, starting with the easiest one to explain, Outstanding Award. I did that and I passed. Congrats to me, pat on the back. I could have got a distinction. Yeah, that's the highest level you can get, pass with distinction. But I guess it's my bad. I kind of lost the fire in my belly, throughout the course of this month. It's been a very interesting month that I might go into in the future, maybe not. But yeah, I kind of lost the fire under me. I was sitting in my room like, I cannot be bothered to prepare for this. I prepared as much as I could have. I done as good as I could, given the circumstances. I'm a bit disappointed to not get a distinction award. But also, as I say, like all you had to do is pass. There was no desperate need to get a distinction other than to flex, I feel like. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but that's what I worked for. And I didn't fail, so that's I'll take it. I'm happy. Again, pat on the back. Shout out to Bristol and Carissa for getting me through that process. But yeah, I got it. I do have some feedback actually. Essentially, what the Outstanding Award is before you can do it, you have to do the Bristol Plus Award, and the Bristol Plus kind of encourages you to attend a certain number of it's not insights, it's like video sessions or like presentations to learn more about your career, like CV, cover letter, etc. You have to do so many hours of volunteering, so many hours of what they call intensive training, I think, which is like, I think it's 3 hours of intensive training, which literally means like, it is what it says. I don't know how to go on any further than that, but some sort of training, like a spring week, for example, is what you can consider intense training, because you're actually getting the insight, getting the knowledge there and then in like a controlled manner towards a certain career path. The Bristol Outstanding Award is like a follow-up from that, where you got to do 20 hours of work towards a project. In my case, I did the Undergrad Survivor Guide, my podcast, UGSG, and I just talked about the different leadership qualities involved in that, organising guests, managing resources, working with people, all the very cool things that you can imagine. If you wanted to brag about something, you can. The buzzwords are all there. And yeah, obviously I put a lot of time into it, and I figured out how to present, to communicate what I did pretty well. So the feedback I got was amazing project, very personable and great voice. I can see why your podcast is a success. Pat on the back. Many great things to say, but drifted away a little from the answers on occasion. Overall, however, really good. So it's pretty good feedback. Again, I generally do get good feedback from things that I apply to. Not to flex, but I've got receipts right in front of me. So I'm of course satisfied with that. Leadership, they said, was pretty good. Demonstrated the STAR technique very well in order to answer the activity questions. That's cool. The final point of feedback was, this is small of your overall technique was good, but the problem used in your problem solving answer did not allow you to scope to provide a detailed answer on the outcome. Okay, so it's like, essentially my answers just weren't perfect. That's basically what an interview is. They can only really merit you on your answers. So if your answers aren't 100%, obviously you're not going to get the greatest of grades. I'm sending them a picture by tomorrow. Okay, I'll get them a picture by tomorrow. But yeah, so I got that. I passed that. I didn't get a distinction, but it's either fail, pass, or distinction anyway, so I'll happily take the pass. My feedback's pretty good. Of course, I should have tried harder with my answering my questions. As I mentioned, I recognize that I could have done more. But yeah, generally good feedback, so shout out to me for that. The next one, I think is a short, I've got like a list here. The shortest one I can go on to explain afterwards as well will be CEO for a month. CEO for a month is an opportunity by Adecco, I think. And it is what it says. You get, the internship is for a month and you become like the CEO of a function in the company for a month. There's not much I want to say about that because all I've done is the tests. I've got results which I can get up. I don't think it's really worth getting up. Yeah, I mean, it's not worth getting up. It just says that I was above average for inductive reasoning. I was average for deductive reasoning. Well above average for numerical reasoning. Shout out to my engineering degree for that. Moderately likely fit for the company based on the personality test. And a strong fit for the company based on the SJT, the situational judgment test. It's pretty cool. The only thing I can tell you guys from that, I guess, is that SJTs, they generally ask for the same thing. I've started to notice that there's a pattern all these companies ask for. They do always say, check out the values of the company, the goals of the company, the vision, blah, blah, blah. And yes, I do agree with that. Like, if you do look at the vision of the company, the values, you can see how their questions are based to determine whether you show those same values. But I've recognized that a lot of these companies kind of ask for the same values. Everyone wants a team player. Everyone wants a leader. Everyone wants someone who's proactive, wanting to work hard. Everyone wants someone who, it's the same positive things that people kind of want. One question that I get a lot with these SJTs that I've noticed as well in CEO for a month is they always have these questions where it's like, if you're given more, well, it's not the question itself, but there's always like an answer somewhere in any of these questions that's like, ask manager, ask a senior colleague, ask this person. And generally, I don't know if this is facts, but it's something that I've noticed when I do SJTs. I seem to get the best results when I avoid asking the manager for help. You don't really want to be asking for help. You've got to be taking on the responsibility on your own. Obviously, when you're actually there, if you're matched, if you come across a massive obstacle, a big problem, of course, the right thing to do is to speak to someone who knows more about it than you. But the way these questions are kind of phrased, it's not like you're presented with an impossible task. It's like something that's a bit different. You've done work before, you're doing quite well in your team, so why don't you try something a bit new? In that sense, the way they've worded it is like, you shouldn't be asking for help if you're a bit concerned. As long as you know what you're doing, you can do the bits that you know first. If you have a bit of extra work to do, try and squeeze it into your day. Don't talk about, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll let the colleagues know that I've got a lot of work. Don't bother with that. Just be like, what, I'll rearrange my calendar, or I'll firm the fact that I've got less time to do in the afternoon, or I'll find a way to prioritize the tasks that are due in first. They always want you to be like work heavy, not asking for help, not accepting losses. Always want to be like in the zone. Again, I don't know if that's subjective truth. Whenever you do an SJT, you don't get specific answer by answer feedback. It's just like good fit, bad fit, whatever. But yeah, whenever I say I would like to take on more work, I get good scores. Whether or not I'll actually do that in the workplace or not, it's a different question. But it's something to be wary of, something to understand that obviously these companies, they want the best. So it is better to be completely honest. Don't be wrong, I haven't lied. I maybe like stretch the truth a little bit, but I don't lie because I don't see the point of lying. But when these companies say, if they say you're a moderate fit for the company, or a bad fit because of your situational judgment or because of your personality, that should never be interpreted as a bad thing. I mean, if it's like your dream company, like you really want to work for Google, and they say, oh, you're going to be a bad fit, you're not a nice person, that, maybe take that one to heart a little bit. But otherwise, it's like, if they're saying that you're not going to fit in here, just be like, all right, fine, innit? I'm not going to I'm happy that I figured it out from the application than from the hardware of getting there and having this stressful environment, that toxic environment. I'm not trying to say that any of these companies are toxic, but of course it's a mentality thing. Don't take that sort of rejection negatively. If your numericals are bad, then that's different. You can just get better at maths. Do some practice papers. I always get good scores in numericals because I practiced and I've done these so many times. I guess a small tip on that is people get scared by numericals, like, oh, I'm not good at maths. People have always asked me, oh, you do engineering, can you do it for me? I'm like, no way. First of all, I'm not going to give you a job that I can't even get. And secondly, it's not actually difficult maths. A lot of the time it is just, percentages, ratios, GCSE sort of stuff. So it's not that big a deal. Obviously, I will help people. I always try to help. I don't like doing tests for people. So I feel like that's not... I don't like the risk of being caught out or anything. And also, it's a lot of time. But yeah, that's a conversation for another day. But the point is, the math stuff isn't that hard. Just practice makes perfect in this case, and it literally is just practice because the same questions often come up. They change the numbers, but it's always like 10% of this happened here, so what's the number? And it's just like times 0.1 or something to find the answer. So just, yeah, it's okay. The next thing I can go into, so fast futures is, there's not really much I can say, but what I did find interesting is that they use the same Arctic Shores assessment style, the game-based assessment, PwC. So what I was going to do was compare and contrast my two results from the two tests across 2 days to see if they're much different. To be fair, they are actually pretty different, but I think that's more because I tried to play it the second time. I did PwC first, and then when I did fast futures the second day, I was like, you know what, I kind of know what to expect, so that's why things were a bit different. I think what will be more telling and more interesting is my PwC results from last year. Now, if you watched season 1 of the internship game, then you'll know that, okay, I don't even know the date, but it was at some point last year, I got a Bank of America Spring Insight Week, and in that video, when I announced it, I said, oh yeah, we got BAML. I was like, to make this video still be valuable, let me just go through my feedback that I got from other applications at the time. And one of the clips that I showed was my feedback from PwC's game-based test last year. Now, if I remember correctly, when I did the test last year, I didn't get forwarded onto the interview. So obviously my test wasn't so well. But this year, when I did that test, I was passed on forward to go to the video interview, which unfortunately I failed in the end, but that's not... we don't care about that, we care about the game-based test. So yeah, I think what might be interesting, I'm not sure if this is exactly allowed. They might perceive it as like I'm helping people out for the next phase of the test. I don't think that's the case, because I'm not going to give you specifics about the test itself, but I do want to show you, I guess, the differences between what I did this year, what I got last year, and maybe give some of my own... shed my 2 cents on the matter, so hopefully helping people take a better approach, if not at least more of a thoughtful one going forward. So I've actually done this about 5 times now, going from a PwC feedback, but we're going to do it quickly this time. So basically what I want to do is contrast my results from this year's one versus last year's one. At the moment on the screen is last year's one, but we can see that, I'm not going to go through it all in depth, but you can see that there is an obvious shift here. It's worth noting that last year I didn't get the job. Well, I didn't get the interview. This year I did, even though I failed the interview, but I still passed this part of the test. So let's briefly go through it. You can see last year I got a pretty good score for emotional recognition. Small amount of information, but quite quick with it. I bounced back quite slowly from setbacks, according to this thing from last year. Motivated by reward quite a lot. My thinking style, I'm a bit more comfortable with uncertainty and unpredictability than otherwise. Very deliberate, which is a very right-bound score. In this case, I don't think all of these are like left is worse, right is better, but there are some obvious ones where being impulsive is obviously not a great thing to be in business, whereas being deliberate is. Also, being comfortable with uncertainty and unpredictability is a good thing as well. Like obviously, it's it's good to be able to deal with certain situations, but when you're working in consulting, for example, PwC, you can expect each project to be a bit different. You might get a random deadline today, like, oh, quickly, got to do this. And it's obviously good to be able to adapt to that unpredictability, that uncertainty. So it's not necessarily the case that left is better, left is worse, right is bad, based on these results. But it is worth understanding what does this mean in terms of the job I'm applying for, and why did you or didn't you get the job. So again, I'm not going to go through this in depth now. You can see it on the screen. If you want to pause and look at individual points, feel free to. I don't really know why. It doesn't do much for you. But yeah, this is my feedback from last year. If we now go across and look at my feedback from this year, you can immediately see that my personal style is way lower. Before I had a very high emotional recognition score, now it's quite low. Maybe that's to do with the pandemic, being in this room for a year, not seeing faces anymore. But yeah, whatever. My cognition has gone way up. Tend to process much larger amounts of information, but I do it a lot slower. I think that's more to do with my process than anything. So last year was like, basically the game. I don't want to give away too much information. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say without like doing, without getting blacklisted. Which is not actually a real thing as far as I know. But anyway, the point is, there's a game where it's like it's a 3x5 set of like they're called leaflets, and it says like it will give you one at a time to do. Like it will pick this one, that one, and this one, and that one, and you have to remember like which ones it picked and when it picked it, and then do the same pattern basically. Last year, what I did was I just looked at it, played it by eye, and then I tried to remember it in my head and clicked on it at in real time. But not in real time, but like as soon as it let me pick the ones, I tried to do it. And I think that's why I was a bit quicker because it was literally straight going back, and there was no method. It was just like try and memorize it, and then just click. This year I had a different approach where I recognized that three rows, 5 columns. And I said, okay, cool. So the top row is 1 to 5, then it's 6 to 11, then it's 6 to 10, then it's 11 to 15. And on a sheet of paper I just wrote down like leaflet 2, 3, 7, 14, and then wrote it back. So I ended up getting all of it right, but it took way longer because obviously I was writing it down and then trying to recognize which one was 14 again, which one was 7 again. And then obviously it was like really long, load of numbers, and I'm like, oh crap, I put 1 and 2, is that 12 or is that 1 and 2? Like the method wasn't great, but obviously I did get better results this time. Again, I'm not going to go through all these in detail. It's more to show you the contrast between the 2 years, and that obviously I got the job this time. But yeah, I wanted to call that one out because it went from going like really small information to like really big, and there's no obvious reason for that other than for that question, I think. Otherwise, yeah, you can see that I process things a bit slower because of course I'm writing it down here, for that question at least. Bounce back from setbacks quickly. That's good. That score jumped up tremendously from last year. So maybe that being in my room has some benefits, Influenced by rewards has gone down by 2 pegs, I think. I'm not going to go back, but yeah. That's gone down a bit. Focus on influenced by values and goals. Last year was way more thoughts and feelings, way more of an impulsive score. This year it seems like a bit more deliberate, which is actually interesting because lower down I got a very high score for being very deliberate. Whereas now it's like in the middle, so I'm not as deliberate and I'm quite impulsive this year, even though my focus is more balanced, more based on values and goals. So that's interesting. Anything else that's majorly different? I don't think so. My scores are generally quite the same. My thinking style hasn't changed too much. I'm less optimistic than I was before, which is quite a shame. I prefer variety and regular change. So things have changed a bit. For the most part, I think these results are the same. The only things you can really work on if you are encountering, a game-based assessment, the only thing I recommend working on is numerical. If there is a numerical, they usually say that there's going to be a numerical. For PwC, there definitely is numerical, and it's definitely worth revising for that. But otherwise, you can't really prepare for this. There's no easy way to prepare for like tending to adjust behavior to context. I don't even know how that's measured by the tests, but the best advice I think I can give is like being cool, calm, collected. Stay composed. Don't overexert yourself. Like at the end of the day, it's not actually that difficult. It is just a bunch of games like just pumping up a balloon or clicking on this thing and that thing. There's no real prep involved. So just stay calm, be cool. Try to think about how how to minimize risk. And when I say that, I mean like for the balloon one, for example, at some point the balloon will pop. But your goal is to make as much money as you can. So if you recognize that this type of balloon is always popping at 2 clicks, obviously don't click on it twice. Just be more, think as you do the game, but it's not that big a deal. The only thing you can really prepare for is numerical, as I mentioned before. But yeah, that's it for me. There's nothing else I'm waiting for other than CEO for a month. And I guess fast futures, but that's not internship. So this probably will be the last update video. As I mentioned, there'll be LinkedIn in 2 weeks, and the next will be assessment centers, virtual ones. But yeah, good luck to everyone out there still applying. If you have an AC coming soon, interviews, anything, like best of luck. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn or in the comments about if you want any advice and stuff like that. I'm happy to help where I can. But as of right now, that's it from me. I'm gonna go and enjoy this sun. I've done this like 4 times now in videos, but it's a vibe, man. we don't get much sun in the UK, so yeah, I'm out. Take it easy. Peace.